Hey, Merry Christmas and welcome to the Wise Guys, the largest BYU sports live stream talk show in the whole world, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. The new podcast will be out all Christmas week long. That'll be out tomorrow. Wherever you get your podcasts, I'm Dave McCann with Blaine Fowler, the Wise Guys, ready to roll into the holidays. And there is so much going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Hey, make sure you subscribe to our free email. Go to the site, wiseguys.com, ysguys.com, and subscribe to that. You can also watch all of our past content if you're there. Like every week, I just kind of go through and scroll down, and the list just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And there's interviews that I forgot about, that I go down, I click on them, start to watch, and go, that was fascinating, that was awesome. I think you'd find the same thing. If you go to the site and you start scrolling down, you're going to find an interview that you're going to watch. And then you're going to get stuck on there all day long because you're going to see other ones that you've missed. So make sure you subscribe, and then you'll get updated on all things Wise Guys when we're going to go on the air. You'll get highlights and things like that. So be sure to do that. And then also, you know what we'd love you to do? If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there as well. It's free. All this stuff is free. And as our YouTube numbers grow, the subscriptions to our YouTube numbers grow, it's a good thing. It helps the show stay alive for as far as we can see into the future.
And we encourage you to turn our live stream into a giant Christmas card. So let us know where you're watching us from and give you a chance to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, like that one from Sylvia coming in from Wisconsin on the stream. There's Farmington, Utah, Saratoga Springs, Utah, all over the place.
Southern Arizona in there.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's cool. Yeah. Brady Plus is our title sponsor. We're so grateful for them. Brady Plus provides cleaning, food service, and packaging equipment, dispensers, and service and repairs with over 150 distribution facilities around the country and over 6,000 employees. Brady Plus, a big part of the Wise Guys.
Yeah, and then Deseret News is a big part of what we're doing as well. Wise Guys is now being distributed by the Deseret News and Deseret.com, Utah's newspaper since 1850. You can watch for all of our content on their social media sites as we serve Cougar Nation all over the world.
Love Dr. Catch, my fave night of the week with my buddies Dave and Blaine.
There you go.
That's who we are.
That's right.
Tonight on our show, we'll preview the Alamo Bowl, Colorado. It's on Saturday night, and it is prime time against prime time. It's the most exciting playoff game on the docket, and you know what? After those first four games,
it's better than the first
better
round.
Than those.
It's actually a way better matchup than any of the first round, and you see all the info there. Weather's not going to be a factor. It's in the dome.
It's in the dome.
But if you think about it, this is a really good matchup between two teams. We're going to get more into that. But some of these first-round college football playoff games have not been, obviously, right?
No.
Can you say boring?
Boring.
Yeah. Well, this one's not going to be boring. Should be high-flying. Should be a lot of fun. BYU recruiting guru Jeff Hansen is going to come on the air with us tonight. We'll talk about all things BYU recruiting, which will be also fun because if they're going to perpetuate this type of season in the Big 12, recruiting is a big part of that.
Hey, the Nestas from Las Vegas wishing us Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Welcome to the Wise Guys. There's Owasso, Oklahoma, in with us tonight.
When I hear from Jim and Linda Ness, all I think about is that you and I need to go to that great Italian restaurant that Jim and Linda, they always take us to.
Sometimes I lay awake at night thinking of that place.
So good.
We'll definitely be there as soon as we can. Jonathan Tavernari is going to join us live a bit later as BYU Hoops gets ready for the Big 12. You saw that graphic on the bowl service project. Here it is right here. This is a teaser. So we'll talk to you about more on this in about 10 minutes or so. Yeah. Let you know how you can participate, even if you're not at the Alamo Bowl, how you can help the good folks of San Antonio, Texas, as Huntsville, Alabama checks in on the live stream.
I like how kind of the South is represented right now. Got Oklahoma and Alabama in there. Southeast.
Yeah, exactly. So we're waiting for Florida and North Carolina.
Yeah,
up into New York.
Please check in.
So this is some big news, especially for the folks on the podcast. We're excited to offer an ad-free podcast experience. You can start listening to our podcast without any ads or interruptions. $8 a month, or a yearly subscription, which breaks out to $7 a month, which is only $2 or less per episode. None of us love commercials, and so in the middle of a conversation, when you dip out and hear one, you're like, "Hey, Blaine was about to say something brilliant," and all of a sudden now you got to wait.
And we don't control when they put those in there, right? So if you just want to listen, if you just want to get on your bike with the earbuds in and just go, and not have to worry about listening to the whole thing in its entirety. you can subscribe and do that. And with Christmas just a couple of days away, it's a great last-minute gift for your Wise Guys fan in your life. So if you want to gift it to somebody, feel free to do that. It's super easy to do it as a subscription.
How about that gift to the Wise Guys? So we love your support when it helps us keep this show going and keeps our wives happy and letting us do the show. We thank everybody for being in the Wise Guys family, and the link is in the chat, and we'll continue to put it there throughout the night. But on the podcast, as you listen, there is a way now to get rid of these commercials. We were asked earlier today on the website if they can add the ad-free version to Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. Yes is the answer. When you subscribe, you'll get a special link to add your favorite podcast app so you can listen just like you do now, just about everywhere, but without any of those ads.
Right.
So go to wiseguys.supercast.com.
Yeah, links in the chat there for you.
Choose your subscription plan, follow the steps, set up your ad-free feed. And if you're gifting, just select the option to give it as a gift, quick and easy, and you can send it right to their inbox in time for Christmas. It's like the Wise Guys. It's like the Wise Guys gift. Yeah. There's the wise men. Yeah. Now we got the Wise Guys.
I think the wise men were wise guys when they came.
They would have loved to have been on this show.
And I just heard a talk the other day where there were more wise men than I was thinking. There was 3 of them or something. It sounds like there was a bunch.
There could have been a lot, right?
Yeah.
In the videos, they're like this whole group moving over.
Whole group of them coming.
But then the big 3 step forward with the gifts.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how
because they only had 3 gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So.
Hey, 2025 is going to be a year to remember for the Wise Guys and for BYU sports. So jump on board with us, and we'll have a good time. Let's dive into some headlines.
Yeah, let's start with this. Colorado arrived in San Antonio today. So they went today. BYU heads into town, San Antonio tomorrow, Christmas Eve. So we have our last hangout tonight, birthday parties for our kids. All of our families in town. And Gavin, our son that coaches, and his wife Abby, they head out tomorrow morning. They have to head to the airport. I think they fly out right about midday tomorrow, and they'll join all the festivities. They spend Christmas in San Antonio and all the folks at the Alamo Bowl.
That's awesome. The Romano family in Star, Idaho wishes everybody a Merry Christmas on our live stream. So the Alamo Dome will be, there's going to be a lot of Colorado fans. Just brace yourself. We're going to have a lot of BYU fans too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be an empty seat in that place. Seats 60,000 plus. But game day is Saturday, 3:30 Mountain Time, BYU TV. Did you just say that?
No,
okay.
You got. Hey, we got to remind you. If we have to say it twice. I was
looking at the Romano family.
Dave and I are staying. We're not going down to the game. We're going to be in studio. We'll have Spencer down on the field in the Alamo Dome, and we'll be bringing all of the info for 2 hours leading up to the kickoff. And that starts at 3:30. The kick is at 5:30 Mountain Time. That one's on ABC. And then come right back to BYU TV afterward and watch the BYU TV postgame show with us.
Some notable notes. Chase Roberts announced Saturday night he'll be back for 2025. And we were talking last week that of all the guys that BYU could find in the portal that would have a huge impact next season, we couldn't think of anyone more valuable than Chase.
Yeah, I think he was the most important re-recruit. And everybody's thinking of portal recruiting, but how about recruiting your guy that could go out early and go to the NFL?
Yeah.
To me, he was the most important. In fact, we talked about it last week. The guys on Sports Nation asked me that this week. And they also said, do you think he's coming back? And I said, yes, I think he is coming back. When you look at it from Chase's perspective, from an objective perspective, right now he's projected like be a late rounder or a free agent signee. Darius will be gone next year. Maybe. We're going to talk about that a little while too. This whole junior college legislation thing, we'll take you into that in a little bit. But if Darius is gone, I feel like Chase will get the bulk of the targets at that wide receiver spot. He comes back and catches 70, 80 balls next year and goes over 1,000 yards. All of a sudden, he's up in the first 3 rounds as a draft pick. That is a big difference in your percentage chance of making a team versus not making a team. So why not come back, get NIL money for another year, be the guy, and go off into the NFL next year? That's what Chase has decided to do. I think it's a great decision.
Excited about that. Kendall from Richfield, Utah says Merry Christmas. So a Christmas wish from the middle of the state of Utah. Darius Laster suspended for the first half of the game because he got in a fight at the end of the Houston game.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see him until the second half, although I still may pick him as my Y factor on game day because he needs to have a big a big one. Hey, Anchorage, Alaska. Howard's in, and there's Florida. Jared.
We knew we'd get some Florida in here eventually.
Pensacola is in with us.
Thank you, Nick and Sons.
That's awesome.
Jared and Darren on with us. So
Jake Retzloff, by the way, says he is as healthy as he's been since before the Utah game, which was back on November 9th. I talked to Jake at practice early, what was it, last Wednesday?
Yeah.
And still had his leg banged up from where the Utes hit him in that game on the 9th. But he needs to be elusive, healthy, and running around like a madman because he's a big part of the ground game. And it looks like he's ready to go.
He's been banged up. I feel like he was ready to go in that last game against Houston, but they really didn't need him to do too much in the run game in that one. But that's the first time since the first quarter of the Utah game that he's been healthy from the knees down. And he showed us both of his calves right after that Utah game, about midweek after that Utah game, and he was black and blue from his knees all the way down to his ankles. And his ankles looked like he rolled both of his ankles. You know when you roll an ankle and it gets all puffed up and is purple and yellow? Yeah. That's what he looked like for a couple of weeks. He had a huge gash in his calf. I'm going, holy cow, how's this guy even playing? But he was playing. And he gradually has gotten a little bit better, and I thought he was pretty healthy for Houston. He's 100% for this game, so I expect him to be a big part of the run game again, and that's good news for BYU's offense, that's for sure.
Jared Brandt from Sugar City, Idaho is on the stream tonight. Conrad says, Merry Christmas from a cabin in Tahoe.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll do that. There's Orem, Utah on the stream.
Just down the road a little bit here.
Trent, good to have you with us as well. Here's the series. It's the 13th meeting between BYU and Colorado. The Buffs lead 8-3. BYU won the last meeting in the 1988 Freedom Bowl, 20-17. I got a story coming out later this week with Ty Detmer and Jason Chaffetz. That was a big game for Detmer because it solidified him as the starter moving forward, and it was a big game for Chaffetz because he won it on a field goal. And so that's coming out later this week.
And that launched Jason into his political career. And then
it didn't hurt it.
No, it didn't hurt it at
all.
The thing about Jason I never understood is, we should get Jason on the show sometime.
He'd love to be on.
But he could kick a field goal, come over, take his helmet off. How could his hair be perfect when he took his helmet off?
Ty told me that he took full advantage of the rule that you could take your helmet off on the field.
Yeah.
So he'd kick that field goal and that thing would come off, and he'd say anytime he could get TV time with his helmet off, he was all for it. So they kind of went back and forth.
We need to bring him on and ask what products he used on his hair back in those days, where he can take the helmet off and immediately have perfect hair.
Colorado's the home team, so they're coming out in their black and gold. And BYU's going to wear all white for the holiday season. The white helmet, they sent out a picture today. White helmet, white top, white pants. It looks awesome. And it's going to be a great contrast.
Yeah, and Colorado's favored by 4.5. A Vegas line is out. I did have a discussion after the basketball game the other night with who, in my opinion, is the top analytics guy in the world. You know who I'm talking about? Shane Reese.
Yeah. President
Reese. Excuse me. Yeah, I said to him, if you run any analytics on this one, you got a line for me? And he goes, yeah, Blaine, I've actually run full analytics. I don't think he minds me saying. He says, I did full analytics. I did it objectively, and I have BYU as a 3-point favorite in this bowl game.
All right, I'll take that.
So he says on a neutral field, BYU is a 3-point favorite with all of, and think about it, the further you get into the season as a person that does analytics, the more data you have to make a really good objective projection on this. So with a full season behind both teams, he has BYU 3-point favorite on a neutral field.
Let's do it.
That's a pretty close ball game.
It's coming right from the top.
Yeah,
it's coming right from the top. Doug from Rancho Cucamonga, California, is on the stream. I was born in Upland, which is just nearby Rancho Cucamonga, and no one has ever really heard of Upland. But then you say, "Have you heard of Rancho Cucamonga?" And it's such a wild name that, of course, you've heard.
Are you from the Upper Uplands? that's from the new movie. Wait, what was the new movie?
I didn't know there was
Wicked,
Upland.
the new Wicked movie.
Oh, that's from Wicked.
She's from the Upper Uplands.
Larry's wishing everyone a Merry Christmas from Orem, just up the street from us, and we love that. So Alamo Dome seats 64,000. It hosted the Final Four back in 2018. The weather's going to be perfect because it's indoors.
Right.
And Dr. Derwin Gray is going to run out the alumni flag with the BYU football team.
It's better because it'd be just perfect temperature and, Derwin's not getting any younger, less likely to pull a hamstring.
Humidity. There won't be any humidity.
No, it'll be just perfect.
He should be fine.
Hey, Heisman Trophy winner is going to be in this game, which is really exciting. Wide receiver and defensive back Travis Hunter plays wide receiver and corner. He's NFL caliber talent at both positions. I think he's a better wide receiver than a corner. I mean, he could play either. He's a really, really good wide receiver. He'll be the best wide receiver BYU will face this season, which is saying something. There's some really good guys in this league. The last time BYU faced a Heisman Trophy winner was in 2009 when Sam Bradford came out as a senior starter, Heisman Trophy winner, and for that Oklahoma team, and BYU beat that Oklahoma team 14-13 in Dallas at AT&T Stadium.
And that was it for Bradford.
Yep, that was it.
Common opponents.
They knocked him out of that game.
Yeah, they did. And it changed the game.
Yes, it did.
And there are a lot of folks that say if Bradford had stayed in that game, it would have been a different outcome.
And I agree with that.
By the way, Doug in Rancho Cucamonga says, I teach math at Upland. So it must be an Upland high school.
Yeah.
Our dad got us out of there when I was 3.
I feel like Doug is of the upper uplands.
Hey, there's Tyler from Port St. Lucie, Florida.
There we go. See, we love Florida.
He says, by the way, the only BYU fan in my high school. Way to represent. Nice job, Tyler.
There you go.
You got to stand up. Common opponents. Against common opponents, BYU 7-1 and Colorado's 5-2. Mm-hmm. So before Jeff Hansen comes on with us, let's run down some of this.
Yeah, so Baylor, both teams played Baylor. BYU won in Waco, so on the road 34-28. Colorado won in Boulder 38-31. To me, that's similar scores, and you ought to beat them by more when you're at home, right?
Yeah, UCF, BYU won in Orlando 37-24. Colorado won in Orlando 48-21.
Yeah.
Okay.
So both on the road. Colorado did a little better job there. Kansas State, and this is a big one. This is why there's a difference in records. Kansas State BYU won 38-9 in Provo at home. Colorado also got them at home and lost 31-28.
Yeah, that's right. When we were thinking of here comes K-State.
Yeah, K-State we thought they were on the roll.
Arizona, BYU beat the Wildcats in Provo 41-19. Colorado went to Tucson and beat them 34-7.
Mm-hmm. And then Utah, BYU won in Salt Lake City 22-21, and then Colorado won in Boulder, ran away with it 49-24.
Yeah, it was like a 10 a.m. game in the cold.
Sometimes there's style matchups like. The way Utah plays defense, and they don't change the way they do it, is a bad matchup for both Arizona and for Colorado.
Yeah,
you just gonna play Colorado man to man all over the field. It's a bad idea with Travis Hunter playing wide receiver, and that's what Utah did.
Weston's on the stream from Northwest Nebraska. Happy holidays to Northwest Nebraska. Speaking of the Plains, Kansas, BYU lost in Provo 17-13, and then Colorado went to Arrowhead and played in Kansas City, and the Jayhawks routed them 37-21.
Yeah, that's when we were going, whoa, Kansas was on a roll, and then they just tapered off in that last game. But they were on a run there for 4 games where they were as good as anybody in the league, and they beat BYU and Kansas or beat BYU and Colorado during that time. Then Oklahoma State's the last common opponent. BYU won in Provo 38-35. Colorado won in Boulder 52-0. That was just took them out and behind the shed and beat the heck out of them.
Here are some stat comparisons, and this is all leading to Blaine revealing his 3 keys to beating the Buffs on Saturday. BYU is number 1 in the Big 12 in defensive efficiency. Colorado is number 1 in offensive efficiency. Both teams very efficient.
Yes, they are. BYU's number 1 in total defense. Colorado's number 3 in total offense.
Colorado's number 1 in passing offense. BYU's number 2 in passing defense.
And Colorado averages 34.5 points a game. BYU's defense only allows 20.1 a game. They're number 1 in scoring defense in the conference.
The Cougars average 30.8, and Colorado allows 22.
Yeah, Colorado's right up there too in scoring defense. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders has just 8 interceptions. BYU's defense leads the nation in interceptions with 20.
Yeah,
that's an interesting one.
That's a giant differential in numbers. Sanders has been sacked 37 times, most in the Big 12. BYU's defense has just 16 sacks, which is 15th in the Big 12.
Yeah, so that's not strength against strength.
No.
That's weakness against weakness.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give there. Colorado averages just 70 yards rushing with 15 touchdowns, and BYU averages 136.7 with 18 touchdowns rushing.
BYU kicker Will Farron has made 14 consecutive field goals.
Yeah.
If it comes down to a foot, the advantage is.
Let's be honest. When he runs
Farron.
out on the field, if it's 55 yards or less, do we even have any doubt that he's going to make it?
No, it's a great feeling.
When BYU gets past a certain point on the field, you just go, well, at least they'll get 3, unless they turn it over. Because if they send Will Farron out there, he's going to knock it home.
He's going to knock it in.
That is a great feeling. And how about having that guy back? That was another guy to recruit back. So
Janet on the stream says it should be an awesome bowl matchup.
Yes.
We agree. Tell us what you think about this one.
When you look at the stat comparisons, there's strength against strength. There's weakness against weakness. This is a good matchup. It really is.
This is the 41st bowl game in BYU history. It's the biggest since the Cotton Bowl on January 1st, 1997.
Yeah, and it's the first post-Christmas bowl since 2013.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it really has.
This is when this is bowl season. Right. You know, once you get after Christmas, it's not how fast can we get the game over with on December 16th.
Well, and people are paying attention right now. Is there a bowl game tonight? I think there's a bowl game tonight. I don't even know what it is.
There was 2 today. The Potato Bowl was today, and Boca Raton or something.
Yeah, did you care?
That was on. I didn't care.
No, you didn't care.
I just watched.
Yeah, because you kind of have this Christmas rush, and then as soon as Christmas is over, you go, what bowl games are on between now and New Year's, right?
Exactly.
So that's what happens, and this is the richest payout in program history for any bowl, including that Cotton Bowl. $8.25 million payout per team.
Yeah, this is the big time.
Yeah.
It's a real big time. Projected to be the largest TV audience for a BYU bowl game or any game in program history.
Yeah, and this is the 41st bowl game in BYU history, which is really, really cool.
All right, Debbie from Vernal, Utah, checking in, wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. Debbie, you're just in time for Blaine's 3 keys to beating the Buffs. Number 1.
I'm going to start with this. You have to finish drives with touchdowns and not settle for field goals.
All right, I'm writing these
and
down.
As good as Will Farron is, and I mean, he's going to have a field, but you need to score more touchdowns than field goals in this game. Because Colorado's going to score a little bit, right? Yeah. And you can't completely hold them down, and you can't afford to settle for field goals. So that's my first thing.
Okay. Number 2.
I think you need to limit big plays over the top. BYU defensively needs to limit big plays. So Colorado's a big play offense. So they don't typically drive at 80 yards and take 9 minutes off the clock and run it and average 4 yards a play. They get huge plays over the top. They get 70-yard touchdowns and 60-yard touchdowns. Remember, that was UCF's kind of mojo when BYU played them. BYU did a really good job of keeping those big plays in front of them, and that's what they have to do. That helps you to manage points. If the big plays aren't 70-yard touchdowns, if they're 30 yards and then you stop them, you have a chance to either force field goals or force them to punt. And that's what BYU's got to do. So limit big plays over the top.
All right, number 3.
And then number 3 is win turnover margin battle. BYU can't give Colorado short fields, and they can't leave points on the board by being down on the 1 yard line first and goal and throwing picks and doing things like that or fumbling the football. You got to score when you're in the red zone, and you can't give Colorado short fields. So I think the turnover margin battle is, and that maybe should have been number 1, but those are my 3. And BYU's got some good strategies to shake up this offense a little bit. The teams that have done a good job have possessed the football. I think that's important for BYU to possess the football. And they've made Shedeur Sanders move around, but not the kind where he drops back and you lose containment and he gets out on the edge and he has all kinds of time to look down the field and those great receivers are running all over the place. I'm talking about when you move him around with a purpose. So you bring your defensive end inside on a hard rush, force him to run to his left, and then you trigger a linebacker, and BYU's got some of the fastest linebackers in the country. And so as soon as he starts to move, a backer's in his face. So you force him to be on the move, but you have containment planned in your rush. The teams that have done that, as I've been watching film, have a much better chance of slowing this passing game down than teams that either let him sit in the pocket and throw it or let him break containment and have all kinds of time once he gets out there. Then he just kills you. So you got to pass rush with a purpose, make him move off his mark, and have a person there to contain him.
Sylvia says, I think this game ought to be a close one. BYU has to protect the football.
I agree, Sylvia. That's what we're talking. Turnover margin is key. Yep.
John's coming in from the Delta Center. He's at the hockey game, watching the Wise Guys.
But he's listening or watching. Is he just listening? He's actually watching.
I don't know. He's just with us, joining us.
I love it.
Nice job. All right, here's our score predictions. If you've got one to share on the stream, go for it. BYU Colorado on Saturday night. What do you got?
Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I feel like BYU is going to force some turnovers.
Okay.
And I've got BYU 34, Colorado 24.
34-24.
Now, I know Shane Reese said 3 points, but I'm giving him 10.
I'm going to go 38-31 BYU. And it's going to be based on what we're talking about. Being able to run the football. Remember Brandon Doman last week talked about got to run the football, possess the ball, take care of it. They're going to have big plays. BYU's got to have long drives that end with touchdowns. It could get away. I could see it. I could see Colorado just coming out having a heyday, but I can also see BYU going toe to toe and pulling it out 38-31. Who knows how long Sanders and Hunter are going to play? Deion says they're going to play in the game. What does that mean?
Does that mean they play a little bit? I don't know. If
but those NFL agents are saying you're the 1 and 2 picks in the draft.
Right. What are you doing out there?
You're not playing for national title. Okay, play the first quarter. Then
Deion will have kept his word at that point.
Yeah, that seems to make the most sense.
It's interesting because you think about that Arizona State game. BYU against Arizona State, their idea was they're going to possess the ball, which they did a great. Like, remember those drives in the first half? They had these long drives, and then they turned the ball over and they had mistakes. So they didn't get points out of these long drives. It played right into Arizona State's hands. And they also gave them short fields, and they got up on BYU. And then you can't possess the ball. Then you got to be a little quicker with it.
Right.
The second half of football against Arizona State was maybe the best football play that BYU's played all season long. So I need that second half of the Arizona State game BYU team in this game. That's aggressive on defense, tackling well, playing and keeping everything in front of them, holding the score down. And then that offense that was aggressive with their foot on the gas. They seemed like they were playing with more tempo in the second half. That's what I need in this game. I need that BYU team. I'm
excited to see this. Brent's got BYU 35-31.
There you go. See, now Brent's going right with Shane Reese's. So I should call him President Reese now.
President Reese.
And then Sylvia Taylor, she's real close to. So you're right on with me. I like this.
Yeah. Michael says, I like that BYU is projected as the underdog all year long. When the odds makers have picked BYU to lose, BYU's won. That's true.
It's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
they are the dog, about 4.5 points.
Yeah. We
shall see. Keep coming with your predictions. Jeff Hansen's just a couple minutes away. We do want to give you a couple of updates. As every game this year, especially when the Cougars go on the road, we like to cover the service project.
Yes,
and give folks a chance to participate. The Cougs Care tailgate for the Alamo Bowl is going to focus on benefiting San Antonio's Haven for Hope, an organization that provides impactful care for folks experiencing homelessness in the community. This will include making donations through the Amazon wish list, which everyone can participate. It'll provide items specifically needed, and you get information at alumni.byu.edu/Alamo Bowl. The link will be in our chat. You just saw it there if you're on the live stream tonight. I went on my mission to San Antonio many moons ago, and they are some of the greatest people in the world. Mm-hmm. And there are so many BYU fans. I heard like 100,000 in the area now. And they've never had BYU come to town.
Yeah.
And now BYU is coming to town. Just like Santa Claus. Santa Claus is coming to town, and the Cougs are coming to town in San Antonio. So there's that we encourage you to participate in. The links in the stream now. And also we have a Steve Vale update.
Yes, that's right. So a couple of weeks ago, remember we had Josie Bishop on the show to talk about this GoFundMe campaign she set up to send the Steve Val family on a Christmas vacation. Steve is our longtime volleyball colleague. We've known Steve forever. He's just done such a phenomenal job as a volleyball announcer on BYU TV. He's fighting cancer, and we're happy to report that Cougar Nation and others have raised nearly $11,000.
Isn't that awesome?
And they're going to have a memory maker together, and we want to thank everybody that contributed and helped with this to give them a great memory here at Christmas time. Thank you very much to all.
Fantastic. Larry's going BYU 21-17 in the first quarter. Is that your final? It's like your final score. Yeah. Jess is saying a 4.5-hour game.
And Triple Play is saying the same thing. 21-17 showing up. So.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We mentioned a moment ago these college football playoff first round games. The only surprise to me was the lack of competitive matchups.
Yeah. Nothing was good. Was there anything? It was terrible. And
I thought Clemson showed up for a little bit.
Maybe
against
the
Texas.
most disappointing performance of all was like SMU was just Like, hey, let's just turn it over a bazillion times. Let's just give the game away. It was so disappointing.
And then Indiana fell on their sword as well. And you know what? Those were the debate. Should they have gotten in? This and that. Well, head-to-head, they didn't even compete.
No, it was terrible.
That was disappointing. So here's the matchups for the quarterfinals. Penn State, Boise State on New Year's Eve. That's in the Fiesta Bowl. Texas, Arizona State in the Peach Bowl, January 1st. You know what? I know we're in the Big 12, and I'm pulling for Sark.
Yeah, I he's the one guy I root for in the SEC.
Yeah.
Other than Sark, I want everybody in the SEC to fall on their face. And I feel like we have a fallback where we can say, they just came from the Big 12 almighty SEC. A team that just joined the league wins the league.
Yeah, right? That'd be great.
So that would be great. Oregon is at Ohio State. It's actually more of a home game for Oregon, it feels like, in the Rose Bowl. Although this is a traditional matchup because it used to be a Pac-12 Big Ten thing. And now you have the team that was just in the Pac-12 last year against the team that's been the best team in the Big Ten this year. So Big Ten, Pac-12 matchup, Oregon versus Ohio State. Who you got in that one?
Oregon.
Yeah, me too.
They just look so good.
Me too. And then the Sugar Bowl rounds out January 1st, Notre Dame and Georgia. Notre Dame looked way better than I was giving him credit for this last week.
Georgia didn't have their quarterback anymore. He had surgery today.
So I got Notre Dame in that one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Glenn saying good morning from the Philippines.
Yes, way to go, Glenn. Always love having you in here.
We're waiting for your score prediction for the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, hopefully Glenn's like...
He's a day ahead. He should be closer.
He's 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I think we've got that dialed in now. So
notable bowl games this week. The Rate Bowl on Thursday has Kansas State of the Big 12 against Rutgers at 3:30 Mountain Time on ESPN.
Yeah, and then the Liberty Bowl is Friday. That's Texas Tech from the Big 12 against Arkansas. That's 5 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN.
Pop-Tarts Bowl Saturday afternoon. Number 18 Iowa State against number 13 Miami.
Let's go Cyclones.
1:30 on ABC.
Yeah, I want us to just beat the ACC, don't you?
Yeah.
So, Alamo Bowl, of course, is Saturday. That's number 17 BYU against number 23 Colorado. That's at 5:30 Mountain on ABC. But don't forget to be on BYU TV at 3:30 Mountain because Dave and I and the gang will be taking you home for 2 hours with a pregame show.
We had our pregame meeting today. We're going to have a fun show.
Should be good.
Join us for that one. Our first guest tonight's a guy who knows BYU football recruiting better than anyone else outside of Kalani Sitake and his staff. You can find him at 247sports.com and cougarsportsinsider.com, and you can follow him on X at Rakoto10. It's our pleasure to welcome back to the Wise Guys Jeff Hansen from his lair. Merry Christmas. Are the Hansens ready for the big day? And what's the buzz around the house?
Man, we're ready. The kids are finally out of school, so it feels like we're ready for the first time of the season. We're excited, man. It's a
awesome.
good time of the year.
Stuff. I was going to ask you last time you were like, what is there something to the Rakoto 10? Like, what's the handle? Is it Rakoto?
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things that you do when you're first back off of a mission, and it's your mission language. And then before I could wrap my head around it, that hey, not everybody's been on a mission to Madagascar with me and knows what I'm talking about. It had already kind of taken off, so it stuck.
All right.
Okay, because I was like, is there some kind of subliminal message with this Rakoto 10 thing? And I didn't know, and I had to ask you, Jeff.
Jonathan's on the stream. He says Jeff Hansen's the GOAT, so maybe he was with you in Madagascar.
Yeah, he might have been. Yikes. That's a high bar that I'm pretty sure I'm going to come firmly underneath that bar. There's no question.
Hey, if you were to describe BYU's latest recruiting haul as gifts from Santa, would this be considered a big Christmas, a nice Christmas, or a Christmas where you see your neighbors got all the cool presents?
Oh, man. It's a good Christmas. I don't think it's a Christmas yet that maybe it's not an all-timer type of a Christmas.
Okay.
But it's not a Christmas that you're feeling bad about when you go back to school after Christmas break is over.
Well, let me ask you this, because we're not really considering Chase Hansen to recruit, but if you add Chase into the presents, does that improve the Christmas haul?
Yeah, that's a big deal. I think absolutely that's a big deal, and that absolutely improves certainly the outlook for next year. And I think that's so important to look at rosters now. I think Deion Sanders actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Rosters are so year to year now that bringing back a guy, for one more year, it used to be like, well, okay, but it's only one more year. But anymore, with the way that rosters turn over so quickly with the transfer portal, getting a guy back for a full year, especially a guy like Chase that knows the offense and all that stuff, that's huge. That's bigger than most transfer portal wins are going to be in this cycle.
By the way, Glenn from the Philippines says 34-31 BYU.
Oh, wow. There you go.
In a tight one. Cougars announced over the weekend edge rusher Hunter Clegg, who signed with Utah before his mission. Now that his mission's over, has flipped to BYU. He'll play for the Cougars next year. How significant is that? I saw one of his quotes saying that BYU's not the BYU it was when I left on my mission.
Man, it's huge. Hunter Clegg, I was actually trying to think about it, that in terms of BYU edge rushers that they've signed, Logan Fano comes to mind, and obviously that didn't work out for BYU. He's now at Utah. Longi Tuifua comes to mind, and injuries kind of derailed his career. I think that Hunter Clegg, though, is the biggest defensive end maybe since Bronson. I mean, it's been that long in terms of impact that he brings. When he was at American Fork, I got to cover several of his games. I think 4 or 5 of his games, his senior season. I called him Paul Bunyan. I mean, he just looks bigger than everybody else. He's faster than everybody else. He's really, really good. And I remember talking with him when he was coming out of high school, and he was really, really outspoken about how BYU checked every single box for him except for the football development. I mean, he wasn't shy about that he hadn't seen enough from the BYU defensive coaches and the development in that position that was a box that was able to be checked. Everything else, BYU checked every single box. He went onto campus several times, met with professors. He's one of the only recruits I've ever talked to that actually cited the dating scene at BYU as an advantage for BYU coming out of high school. But it was just that football development stuff. So huge kudos to Jay Hill and this new defensive staff. And I think once Hunter got home, he saw that every other box was checked, and now they're checking that developmental box on the defense. And I think this was an easy decision for him when he came back.
And he's longer, like it's the kind of defense man that BYU's looking at. He's between 6'4", 6'5", kind of a guy. You say looks like Paul Bunyan. You know, coming out of high school, I was thinking, man, he's got the kind of frame where he can put some weight on. Who does he remind you? I was thinking, like, can he be Ryan Denny or somebody like that? Eventually, is that the kind of guy, or is there somebody else that you think of once he's fully developed and the size that he's going to be? Who can he be like that people will remember that played in BYU's defense?
Well, he reminds me so much of Tyler Batty. I mean, so that's just a recent name. He's not as tall as Tyler is, but he's that same just big physical force that he's got the quickness. He's got all those things that Tyler has as well. But at the end of the day, you know, Batty just overpowers people, right? And I see so much of that in Hunter Clegg. I think Ryan Denny's a good comp as well, because I do think he's going to get bigger. I think he ends up playing, I want to say BYU listed him at 240, 245, something like that. I would bet he ends up, when he's a sophomore, he's probably playing at 265, 270, that bigger defensive end. But he reminds me just in the way that he gets off the line of scrimmage and his physicality getting into the chest of offensive tackles reminds me a lot of what Tyler Batty does.
Nice. Well, I said to somebody the other day when the news came out, I was like, yeah, he kind of, like his body type reminds me a little bit of Ryan Denny. And somebody said, was Ryan any good? I'm like, dude, Ryan played in the NFL for like 9 seasons. He was great. They're like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, then Ryan Denny's good. I'm like, yes, he's very, very good.
Jeff, today, Texas linebacker Tausili Akana, I want to say that right, Akana, committed to BYU. So he's leaving the Longhorns and coming back to the state of Utah. How big is that?
If he would have signed with BYU a few years ago, he's in the top 5. In terms of highest rated recruits to ever sign with BYU. That's how big of a deal he was coming out of high school. He went into a loaded Texas roster. Obviously, they've been to the playoff in back-to-back years. I mean, it's tough to crack through that rotation as a true freshman, as a true sophomore. And he wasn't able to do that in Austin. So he's a little less heralded now, but that talent is still there. The guy that was, I don't think he was quite a 5-star, but he was pushing 5-star status coming out of high school. He's exciting. He's explosive off the line of scrimmage. And I think what I'm most excited for with Tausili is the versatility that he's going to allow Jay Hill and really from a defensive play calling standpoint, this defensive staff to use. Because he's a true pass rusher. He reminds me a little bit of Ephraim Asiata. He's not going to be the biggest guy. He's not a true defensive end that's going to line up at 250 pounds. I think he's going to play some linebacker, but I think he's going to play up front on a rush end, kind of that outside linebacker role. He could drop back and play coverage. He showed a lot of that during his high school career at Skyridge. So I think he's exciting as a player, and I think I'm excited to watch Jay Hill, the play caller, figure out how to use him because he can do so many different things at different levels of the defense. I think that Jay's going to really be able to disguise what Akana is doing, and he's going to have a huge impact as a result.
It seems like BYU, not only with guys they have in the program, with some younger guys that they're excited about. You mentioned Ephraim, and now these pickups. They've got edge rushers and defensive ends. It feels like they've got that. An area of concern is inside D tackles, and they had two of the best in the league. Nobody knew that Nelson, that these guys were going to be so good inside. Blake and John were tremendous in there. And then we hear that Utah defensive tackle Keanu Tanuvasa is in the transfer portal today. 19 starts under his belt at Utah, and that would be a really nice fix for BYU inside. What's the word on interest from him in BYU?
Yeah, that would be huge. That's a day one immediate type of solution. The national buzz about Tanuvasa is that USC is involved and that Michigan is involved. I hear a lot about BYU. When I talk with people in and around the program, I've covered Keanu Tanuvasa. I think the first time I saw him at a camp, he was just a sophomore back in 2016, 2017. I think BYU is firmly in the mix here, and I would maybe even say if they're not the favorite, they're one of the favorites, and it's neck and neck with some of these other schools that are involved. I think BYU is going to be very much a factor. Tanuvasa is different, right? I mean, there's a lot of motives for why somebody enters the transfer portal in today's era. A lot of it is money driven. There's no question. There's guys that's what they're looking for. They want that top dollar. I don't think Keanu Tanuvasa is that guy. He wants to get paid fairly for sure, like everybody else does, but he's not that guy who's going to sell everything else out in the name of maximizing and getting that top offer no matter where it comes from. He's looking for fit. He's got deep connections with his coaching staff, with the roster. Sione Poa was the one who recruited him to Utah when he was coming out of high school. So there's a lot of things that play in BYU's favor, and I think that BYU absolutely in the mix. And if they are going to get Tanuvasa, I think it happens really, really quickly. If this drags out for a few weeks, then I think other players get into the mix, other visits start to happen, and then anything can happen at that point. But I think BYU, they're going to want to move pretty quickly. Long-standing relationship. There's not a lot of discovery that's going to happen from Tanuvasa's side. So I think this one could move fast, and I think BYU's right in the mix. And then Blaine, you nailed it. I mean, he's a day one solution. He immediately is a starter. He's familiar with not the same defense, but there's enough similarities with what BYU does and what Utah does that he's not going to need a whole year to figure it out. He's going to come in, would participate in spring ball, and then make an immediate impact in September.
I asked you in an interview on Sports Nation not long ago when recruiting was announced, and we always like to say, well, where are they at with the Utes? Have they caught the Utes? And the Utes had a 12-year head start or whatever as a recruit to a P4. If they land Tanuvasa, how big of a punch to the gut is that for Utah?
It's a big deal. I mean, I think Utah will try to downplay it, but it's a big deal. If you remember the gut punch when Logan Fano left from BYU and went to Utah, it's going to feel a lot like that, but on the other side, right? I mean, BYU is going to feel great. They get that day one type guy. That's going to be huge. We've been there. I remember when it was Logan Fano who left. That hurt because he came in, he got hurt, but he came in and immediately made an impact. Yeah. And it was so exciting to see what he was going to bring for BYU, bring to the table. And then he did it in Salt Lake, and that hurt. And we've watched him have success. I think Keanu Tanuvasa is in that same boat, and especially the timing of it in terms of the impact for Utah. Defensive tackles are hard to come by in the transfer portal. I mean, they're tough. And this late in the cycle, they've lost some guys to graduation. That's a big blow to lose a guy like Tanuvasa, who was already a starter. They've already lost Junior Tafuna to graduation. They've got holes in the interior of that defensive line for the first time in a long time without Tanuvasa in the mix.
BYU football recruiting expert Jeff Hansen of 24/7 Sports and CougarSportsInsider.com is on the Wise Guys. Presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. Jeff, portal shopping's well underway now, and it's something you can do before and after Christmas. There's no Christmas rush for this, right? Where do you expect BYU to spend most of their time? In what position groups are they actively out there trying to fill a need? We just talked about defensive tackle, so we know that's a important one. So outside of defensive tackle, where else do they have needs that they're trying to fill right now?
The good thing about being 10-2 is you don't really have that many holes on your roster. It's easy during this time of year when everybody is out adding transfer portal bodies. It's easy to look, at a school like Utah it seems like every day there's a new commitment coming to Utah out of the transfer portal. It's easy to feel a little bit of jealousy because the news is great. BYU doesn't have that many holes, so I really don't think they're going to add that many guys. I've had my eye kind of maybe 7, maybe 8 guys, depending on some attrition. Maybe they could push that up to 10, but BYU is not going to add a ton. So they're going to be really calculated, and that's okay because they went 10-2, and most of this team is going to be able to come back next year. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing that BYU is not in this every single day. There's a new body coming out of the transfer portal and joining the program. That speaks to continuity and all those things. In terms of the transfers that they are going to get, defensive tackle we've talked about, edge rushers they've already addressed. And I think those edge rushers are important because they want to bring in more guys on the edge. That will probably push some existing edge rushers inside. Guys like Vili Pua probably move inside, and they are a defensive tackle. So that's somehow BYU will use the transfer portal to address that position as well. For my dollar right now, offensive tackle and cornerback are really the only two glaring needs. If they can get 1 or 2 at each position, offensive tackle and corner, I feel pretty good. And then everything else that BYU does the rest of the way is probably gravy, right? Just go get best talent available, add it to your roster, and get better somewhere. But that's it, really. Offensive tackle and cornerback, I don't see any other glaring needs that BYU has to address in the transfer portal right now.
I'm glad to hear you say that they're going to move some guys from the outside down to the inside, because people forget that John Nelson and Blake Mengelson, who were phenomenal as D tackles, were playing outside last year and the year before, and they moved them down inside, and they put on some extra bulk and some extra strength in the offseason with their strength and conditioning group, and they played every game. Those two guys played every game at D tackle for BYU, and they were extremely effective. So it's not a bad formula to take those outside guys, put some bulk on them, and move them inside, and you can kind of make your way doing that. So I'm glad to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the recipe. And look, that's what Sione Pua has done his entire coaching career. That's what how he recruited at Utah. Junior Tafuna's been a great defensive tackle that Coach Pua recruited when he was at Utah. He was a 215-pound outside linebacker when he was at Bingham High, and now he's that almost a true nose tackle up there at Utah. That's what Coach Pua likes to do. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that. And it was interesting. I was watching an NFL game a few weeks ago, and I noticed that there wasn't a true nose tackle. I wish I could remember which team it was. I want to say it was a Raider game, but there wasn't a true nose tackle for a few defensive series, like full series that they were running with defensive ends across the entire defensive front. And I think you're seeing this movement of we've got to get more athletic in the trenches, even if that means sacrificing a few pounds. So guys like Mengelson and Nelson, they don't have to be 320 pounds to play defensive tackle anymore. If you're 280 and you could shoot gaps, that's a valuable asset to have. And I think that's the formula that BYU's coaches like.
Jeff, today the NCAA announced that if a senior played a year of junior college, he can come back next year and play one more year.
Unbelievable.
And that leads us to our Cougarboard question of the week, and you're an expert for this one. If you're not familiar with Cougarboard, it's the largest online community of BYU fans, thousands of posts every day. This question comes from one of their insider subscribers, and I know Cougarboard follows you very closely. What are the chances that the NCAA will be forced to not count junior college time as eligibility? How would that affect the game? Would there be more investment in junior colleges as a farm system? So that's a lot to throw at you. But is JC time going to count against Division I time?
Man, trying to predict what the NCAA is going to do it's impossible at this point. But if I'm looking at it and just the way that things have kind of played out, yeah, I mean, I don't see a world where this gets challenged in court and the NCAA is able to continue to operate the way they always have. And to that end, I mean, I think you're one or two lawsuits away from no eligibility requirements at the rate things are going, that there are no rules until there's some sort of legislation passed. So I do think the junior colleges, that the groundwork has been laid to where those years spent at JUCO do not count towards your NCAA eligibility. Right now, it's all temporary while they go through this Diego Pavia court case and get it all finalized. The NCAA said they're going to appeal, but they will have this temporary eligibility for one season. But I do think it sticks, at least in some form or facet. And then what does that mean? I don't know. It's tough. I mean, if I'm looking at it as a player where the transfer portal's here, there's no more transfer rules where I'm going to lose a year and have to sit out. Maybe I want to save that eligibility if I'm a lightly recruited guy and I've got some walk-on opportunities. Maybe I go JUCO. But otherwise, I'm looking at it, if I've got scholarship offers from, Utah Tech and Weber State and then preferred walk-on offers, I might go to FCS. You get a little bit tougher competition, and then you can just transfer in a year anyways. Yeah. So I don't know that JUCO will ever be that true farm system like it seems like it could be, but it definitely will be more of a role. JUCO ball is just so tough, right? COVID decimated junior college football. Hopefully that's able to get rebuilt and there's more JUCO programs throughout the country. But right now it's tough. I think FCS has taken a lot of those junior college players, and that's kind of the route that things go. But maybe this eligibility stuff changes that in the future.
You mentioned the Diego Pavia case down in Tennessee. And by the way, hey, Gary Johnson, right when I just say Tennessee, Gary Johnson pops up and says, hello from Saudi Daisy, Tennessee.
Hey, Gary.
Right on time, Gary. But if this thing stands, like, is Jake Retzlaff back for another 2 years? Like, is Jake a sophomore last year? Or he ain't gonna have 2 more years of eligibility, for Pete's sakes. That's crazy. And does Darius Lassiter come back next year? I mean, what happens with BYU if this thing stands? Do you see some of these guys coming back another year?
I think that there's some that could. I mean, does Darius Lassiter have enough NFL guarantees, or is there an NIL package that could, look a little bit more attractive than a fringe draft guy and a practice squad guy? I think absolutely, if that's the grade that Darius Lassiter gets, then it's going to be really tempting to come back to BYU for one more year. I think Caleb Etienne is in that same boat. I don't know that his stock is going to be any higher than it is right now. But if he goes and he meets with those NFL guys and he's a late round guy or he's an undrafted guy, I'm sure that BYU would be thrilled to have another year of Caleb Etienne, and he was also a JUCO guy. So, yeah, I think it's a big deal if it stands. Maury Bamba could come back for another year. There's a handful of contributors that could take advantage of it. I don't know that it's a surefire that absolutely, yes, they will, just because that year is there. But depending on what that feedback is in that NFL circuit, then I think there could be some guys that take advantage of it.
Football recruiting guru Jeff Hansen of 24/7 Sports is on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. A couple more questions for you before you reveal your top 5 all-time recruits under Kalani Sitake. We look forward to hearing that list. Saturday is the Alamo Bowl against Colorado. How important is this for BYU when you consider more people will probably watch this game than have ever watched BYU play football in its 100 years of getting it out there? How big is Saturday?
Normally I would say it's not that big of a deal. Bowl game results with opt-outs and different things like that, I don't think bowl game results diminish what BYU has done. And so I guess I say that if BYU were to lose, normally I would say that's not a big deal. But I think this year, because of the opportunity with the eyeballs, but also because of the narrative that came out about BYU during that last month of the season, that, hey, they were overrated, they didn't deserve, the recognition or the fluky wins or whatever. If BYU comes out and beats Colorado, who, right or wrong, fair or unfair, is kind of universally accepted as a very, very good football team, and there are no flaws, right? The losses notwithstanding, they're a very good football team. If BYU could come out and make a statement against this Colorado team, I think it solidifies what BYU has done. That, hey, look, yeah, they had a few breaks go their way, but that's football. That isn't that BYU was fluky. That's just football. They had to be in position to get those breaks, and then the rest of the game, they had to go out and they had to win. So I think that the chance to put an exclamation point on this season and say, this was for real, and this is what BYU can expect and will be going forward, that's a huge opportunity that BYU has on Saturday.
In this matchup, you got BYU, whose defense is number 1 in the Big 12 in scoring defense and total defense. You got this Colorado offense with such dynamic play, really good wide receivers. They're throwing the ball all over the place. You got Shedeur Sanders. You got the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, out there. Matchup of strengths, right? So what tips the balance here in your mind in BYU's favor and Colorado's favor with that matchup of strengths?
I look at the weaknesses, and I think that's where that the strengths are going to – Colorado's going to score. They're going to get some yards through the air. They're just too good not to. BYU's going to make some plays. They're probably going to pull in an interception or two. They're too good not to. But does BYU let the Colorado running game get going? Or does the Colorado defense somehow come up and show up in a way that they really haven't all year long? That's where I start to look at it. Does BYU defensively – do they get gouged against the run? That would be a recipe for disaster for BYU. Offensively, can Jake Retzlaff protect the ball, or does he, does the offense stumble? Does the running game not get going? I look at those areas that aren't the headlines, and I think that's where this game is going to be decided, because the strengths are both strong on both sides of the ball. I have a hard time saying that one of them is stronger than the other, because both BYU's pass defense, Colorado's pass offense, they've been elite in every measure for both sides. So what about the rest of the game? Where are those 4 or 5 plays going to happen? Who makes those 4 or 5 plays that you're not expecting, that when you look back at the game tape, you say, that was a difference-making, a game-winning type of play? I think that's where it's going to come down to. So I'm looking at that BYU run game. How does Retzlaff protect the football through the air? And then can the defense control the line of scrimmage so that it has to be Shedeur Sanders in the pass game that goes out and wins? There's not, a long fluky run or a special teams play or something like that.
And Michael says, Guru Jeff, BYU 100, Colorado 22. So he's drinking the blue Kool-Aid tonight.
Wow.
Jeff, Brandon Doman was on the show last week, and he thought BYU needs to run for at least 150 yards to win this game. Anything less, and he thinks it'll be harder to win. Do you agree? And how do they get those yards? And I might say a healthy Jake Retzlaff, does he get a lot of them?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if 150 yards is the measurement, but I look at it and I say the best way to keep that high-powered offense off the scoreboard is to keep them off the field. So if BYU can run the football, eat up clock, move the chains, that's, I think, the recipe. And fortunately, that's what BYU's offense has done very well at times this year is those long drives. Mm-hmm. They've got to capitalize in the red zone, but I think that's important for BYU. How do they do it? It's a combination of Jake Retzlaff in the run game. Look, he's not Taysom Hill, but he's a very good runner, and people kind of forget about it. So he's going to get he'll have his opportunities. But I look at this stable of running backs that BYU's got: Sione Moa, LJ Martin. They have had big games. Now that Pokai Honga is not at jeopardy of losing his red shirt, I'm really curious to see what A-Rod does to get him involved in this run game. I think BYU's got 3 running backs that are very good, and they've got Jake Retzlaff who can run the ball. Between the 4 of them, they ought to be able to move the ball on the ground against this defense.
There's more Sione Moa for me. That's what I've been saying all year. More Sione Moa. I know he hasn't been healthy, but Dave and I made our predictions. Should we tell Jeff our I said 34-24. So I have BYU by 10, which I know might be a little bit crazy. I just feel like BYU is going to make a big play or two that's going to make a big difference. And Dave, what did you have?
38-31.
Yeah, so he's got 38-31. So both have fairly high scoring.
And Guru Michael's got 100 to 22.
Michael's got 100 to 22. That one's out there. That's out there.
Vegas is reacting to it right now.
Right now, the betting line just changed on this one. So what's your bowl prediction? Give us a score.
Yeah, I like high scoring as well. I think I'm right there with you, Dave. I think 38-31 makes a lot of sense. I maybe have it a little bit closer. I'll say 38-35. And this
Okay.
comes down to a field goal in the end, but I do think this is going to be high scoring.
If it comes down to a field goal, we've already talked about we like Will
We
Ferrin
like
on our
Will
side.
Ferrin's chances
right.
to win this thing, right? So we also mentioned I pulled President Shane Reese aside and just said, I know you've done analytics on this thing. Come on, what are they? And he's a guru. Like, he's one of the best in the business. And I noted that Vegas line was 4.5 Colorado, and he goes, well, yeah, Blaine, I did a full breakdown, and he said, on a neutral field, I have BYU's three points better than Colorado. So you are right on the money with what Shane Reese is saying. So
There you go.
Hey,
Could be in worse company.
Yes,
Jeff,
yes.
before we do these five, Earl Carr's on the stream and says, hey, Jeff, where do you see Gentry, the Michigan kid who's in the portal, where do you see him landing?
Yeah, I like where BYU's at there. I think
Really?
he's taken visits to USC and Indiana as well. I don't think USC. I don't think he ends up at USC for a lot of reasons that I.
it just
I
doesn't
don't
seem like
get
a nice
into.
fit for him to me. Right?
Yeah, I just don't think that's where he goes. Indiana's got a lot of appeal, but I think ultimately he comes. I like where BYU's at. I think
Okay.
he'll make a decision in the next day or two.
Gentry
Interesting.
and Clegg would be. That's a nice combo on both sides of the ball of guys they wanted coming out of high school that now would both come back there. That'd be a big.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah, it is Christmas time. We can always wish, right? So there you go.
5 Questions is presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies. Owned and operated by a BYU alum who's helping the wise guys conquer the world. You can reach Chantal at strategysquare.co. Jeff's 5 biggest recruits under head coach Kalani Sitake at BYU. Blaine, you ready to lead him through?
Yeah, let's go. And I hope you have them written down, because I want to go 5 to 1. I want to start with
Okay.
5. So the 5th best down to the first. Let's start with number 5.
Okay, I don't know if this one's a surprise, but I'm going with James Empey.
Really?
James Empey, if you look at what that represented in the state of Utah, he was obviously a legacy guy, Mike Empey's son, all this stuff, and he signed with Utah. And that was a really familiar story for BYU fans for a long, long time. For those, for 7-8 years of independence, it felt like every legacy guy was going to Utah.
Yeah.
Kalani Sitake gets hired, and James Empey comes home from his mission and immediately flips and plays for Sitake and plays for his dad at BYU. That was a big deal. That was a big win. And then obviously what he did on the field, he came in, immediate starter, replaced T-John Karoma, who was great. And BYU really didn't take a step back at the center position the entire time that Empey played. But what that represented on the recruiting trail was that, hey, BYU's back and they need to be taken seriously, especially locally. I thought that was a big, big deal for Kalani.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
James was great. Great culture guy too. Great leader. Okay, now we're gonna go to number 4. Who's number 4 on your list?
Number 4, I got Chaz Ayu. His career gets derailed by injuries there at the end, but the way that BYU won that recruiting battle, the helicopter, the national hype, he was, I don't know if he ever was officially committed to UCLA, but everybody expected him to commit to UCLA. Kalani and his staff flip him at the last second. I thought that was a huge win. And then that gave BYU a lot of publicity as well, that they were able to ride for a couple of years on the recruiting trail. That was a big one for me.
Yeah, we haven't had a helicopter land since.
And I feel so. I wish Chaz could have stayed healthy. His instincts were just so good to the football, and then but the injuries just kind of slowed him down in terms of just flat out speed and quickness, and that's too bad. So, okay, we'll go to number 3 now.
Number 3, I've got Kingsley out of the transfer portal, the big 5-star offensive lineman coming back home. That was big. That's a big deal. Look what he did on the field, right? He came in, he started, he played on both sides of the line. Now he's pro. I mean, that story, everybody knows that story. I look at things from a recruiting lens, and what Kingsley proved is that you can be a 5-star, a legitimate, bona fide 5-star, come to BYU and get to the league. BYU needed a success story like that. Yeah. And for Kingsley to come back from Oregon and really shut everybody else out. He knew he was coming to BYU as soon as he hit the portal. That was a big win.
It's good.
That's a good one. Number 2.
Number 2, I got Puka. Similar story of, hey, you can have all the offers, all the attention in the world, come to BYU, have success, go to the NFL, become a superstar. I don't think there's any explanation needed. Puka Nacua was a huge recruiting win.
Yeah, and he just keeps on winning.
Oh, yeah. And he represents.
He just is so BYU.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't, he's, he and Fred, they just act like BYU guys out there. They talk about their school all the time. The only guy better than those two right now at doing that is Andy Reid himself.
Right.
Andy Reid just wears it on his sleeve. Yeah, what are my Cougs doing? You got to love that. Right. So Puka's a walking commercial for BYU. I love him, and I love what he's doing for BYU. Okay, what about number one?
Number one, I've got Zach Wilson, and again, I look at it from that recruiting lens. The timing, right? That BYU was 4-9, coming off that awful 2017 season, and it didn't look like there was a lot of hope for the future. And Zach Wilson comes to BYU. The story everybody's heard 1,000 times. Grows up a Utah guy, all that good stuff. But comes to BYU and immediately changes the tone of the program, wins the job as a true freshman. He went through his lumps still. I mean, it's easy to forget that Northern Illinois game in 2018, that was brutal. Yeah. There were ups and downs still, but Zach Wilson provided some hope. And ultimately, 2020 speaks for itself. His success speaks for itself. I look at that recruiting win for Kalani and the coaching staff. I have no idea. Firing coaches isn't BYU's MO, but there's a really strong argument to be made that Zach Wilson saved this coaching staff's job because of the way that 2019 season, or excuse me, I keep saying 2017 season played out for them to get Zach Wilson and reestablish some hope in the fan base. I don't know how. I can't think of anybody else that was a bigger recruiting win on and off the field for Kalani.
Well, and during the COVID year, Zach was ESPN's Mr. Saturday Night Guy. Right. Everyone knew Zach Wilson. A big part of that. Hey, another Jeff has come on the stream with his own 5 best recruits, and he goes a different route. Hill, Pahua, Papinga, Fessy, and Woods.
There you go.
That's a pretty
hard
good
to argue
group.
with that.
Yeah. And Jay's done a phenomenal job in recruiting on the defensive side of the ball. I like the recruits that Jay's been able to bring in the secondary and a linebacker have been phenomenal. It's really upgraded what they've done. So I like it. So he's got Zach Wilson at 1, Puka Nacua at 2, Kingsley Suamata'i at 3, Chaz Ayu at 4, and James Empey at number 5. And all great rationale for all those. That's a great job, Jeff. We appreciate that.
And 38-35 BYU at the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah. And hey, I know you don't do as much basketball, but what about AJ Dybantsa? Like, where does he rate all time?
Oh, man.
How many football players is he going to get?
Yeah, that is unbelievable.
There might be an argument that he's the most important football recruit in this class, too.
That's what we're saying.
He's making BYU cool, and it's – I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it's making its way throughout the country that, BYU, people who don't normally consider BYU are looking twice because AJ is coming.
You can follow Jeff on 247sports.com, cougarsportsinsider.com, and on X at Rakoto10. Thank you for joining us. Merry Christmas to you and your family. And enjoy the game on Saturday, and we'll see you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff Hansen. You know what we love about Jeff? He knows his stuff.
Yeah, he does. He really does. It's always fun to have Jeff on the show.
And he starts dropping names and this and that, and it's like, I'm glad we know him. Yeah, because then we can ask him questions.
I love how you just wrapped that up. AJ Dybantsa might be the most important football recruit of all time, too.
He's making BYU cool, is what he said.
That's really fun.
That's cool. Speaking of the Cougars, basketball 9-2, beat Florida A&M on Friday 103-57. We had that call. Mercifully.
Yeah, and we were waiting for Canon Catchings. Yeah. We talked about in the game, you and I called the game, before the game that, man, wouldn't it be nice for Canon Catchings to just kind of catch fire and have a good game to launch him into the Big 12? He's been struggling just a little bit lately. How about 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3, 4 boards and 3 assists in that game. Phenomenal game for Canon Catchings. He was
on our post-game show. I mean, he looks like he's 16. Yeah. But there's the gleam in his eye. He's so excited to be Superman. He just and this was his best game, and you could tell he was. And it was Florida A&M. So what? He had to hit these shots because bigger games are coming. He needed that kind of game.
Yeah. And how about that baseline drive where he could have taken a 3. And he decided, wait a minute, the lane's open. This is what Kevin Young's been wanting him to do. He puts the ball on the floor and goes baseline. And I mean, he throws down a thunder dunk with 2 hands where he actually had to push down on the rim after the dunk to make sure he didn't hit his head on the backboard going by.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Great moment.
He is so athletic. And you know, he and Egor, when you talk to him off the court, they just seem like 18-year-old kids.
Yeah.
But on the court, they're far beyond their years, and it's so fun to have that kind of talent at BYU right now.
The good news is Egor is going to be back on the court against Arizona State, along with Richie Saunders, who was in concussion protocol. They're both due back on Tuesday, December 31st, as Arizona State comes in for their Big 12 opener. It's the Big 12 opener, and it's also the first time Arizona State has played a Big 12 game as they're a newcomer from the old Pac-12. That's at 2 in the afternoon on New Year's Eve, so it's not quite, you know, it's not going to take you to the ball drop.
New Year's Eve plans.
But it's on ESPN2, and it's a big one, and it's huge for BYU because you have got to defend your home court.
Right. That's in this league. You've got to do it if you're going to be in the top half of the league, and don't forget. We're doing pregame shows for basketball as well, so all the Big 12 games will be on the air at 1 o'clock Mountain Time on BYU TV to lead you into that game and get ready for the opener in the Big 12.
Speaking of AJ, did you see that John Rothstein broke the news the other day that Dybantsa and the Cougs are going to open next season against Villanova on November 3rd at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. That's how AJ's era is going to start.
Right away. And, you know, we talked to Kevin Young a couple weeks ago. We talked to him again just before the game the other night. We sat down with Kevin. And he wanted to upgrade the schedule a little bit. This is his first year in this, and he felt like their preseason schedule, he wished that he had just a couple of more really challenging games to help them get ready for Big 12 play. And so next year, they start off with Villanova right out of the chute. So that's good.
And there's going to be more.
Yeah.
There's big things because CBS, ABC,
they all
ESPN,
want AJ on their air, right?
It's like having, some have compared him to LeBron James, others Kevin Garnett and Kevin Durant. But LeBron didn't do the college thing. And so these networks are lining up going, hey, we're doing college games, so we want that guy.
Well, and think about this. It's not just, AJ's the big draw, but very quietly, Kevin Young's adding other pieces to this team. They already, and as weeks ago, Xavier, the big 7-footer out of Las Vegas, is doing a phenomenal, who's been playing as a phenomenal defender, one of the elite defenders in all of high school basketball coming. And then they just made an announcement the other day that Kadeem Mbop, who is the big 6'9" forward out of Senegal, has been added to the roster. He's here right now. He just comes. He's a freshman. Will he play before the end? I don't know what they're going to do with him. They're going to try to redshirt him. They weren't really sure what they're going to do. But he is a crazy athletic guy. And you asked, when you and I sat down, you said to Kevin, like, what's he like? And the first words that came out of his mouth is, he is an elite level athlete.
Yeah.
So they got a bunch of those on this squad.
And they could have him for 4 years.
I'm telling you right now, nobody in the Big 12 now or in the next couple years is more athletic and long than BYU. Now they're young, they got to learn to play together, but athletically, whenever we ever said, hey, BYU, let's match them up against every team in the Big 12, nobody's longer or more athletic than BYU.
Right.
Those are words that have never come out of my mouth before, but it's true. When you had AJ and Xavier and maybe Canon comes back next year, I don't know, he may go out. Like, look at right now, BYU. With what they've got out there, with Egor at 6'9" playing the point, and Catchings, who's 6'9" and can take it off the dribble, and this is a very elite team, athletically.
The Lightning Slugs just said, "Hey, Chris Brooks just scored a touchdown for the Packers."
There you go.
On Monday Night Football. Nice to see Brooks doing his thing. Boyd checking in from Leander, Texas on our live stream. And we're wishing everybody Merry Christmases.
Yes.
So please continue. It's been a lot of fun. Let us know where you're streaming us from, and give you a chance to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. The AP Top 25 out today. Iowa State still at number 3. Kansas back up to 7. Houston's at 15, Cincinnati's at 17, and the Baylor Bears come in at 25. It's going to be interesting, this Big 12, once the battles begin.
Yeah.
Who takes who out? who's going to get a hot streak and surprise some folks. But you don't see Arizona in that top 25. They've been probably the biggest preseason disappointment coming in. But it's just going to be interesting.
Yeah, because in the preseason, all the talk was if you're going to add one elite program to the Big 12 who's got the kind of history that Kansas has, or somewhat the kind of history that Kansas has, it's adding Arizona from the Pac-12, who's been a perennial NCAA tournament team and perennial top 10 type of a program. Yeah, what's happened down there?
Yeah. Well, they got to get it together because
but they have talent.
They got the battles ahead.
Yeah, they have talent. So.
It's Merry Christmas, gentlemen, from Kanab, Utah. From Bone Tats, thank you. Good to have you on the live stream. Jonathan Tavernari is going to join us in just a couple of moments. Women's basketball is 9-3. They are 0-1 in the Big 12. They dropped a game to Arizona, 57-53 in their Big 12 opener. Delaney Gibb today was named the Big 12 Freshman of the Week for the third time out of the gate. She had 23, missed a 5-foot runner, though. That's what's got her bugged.
Yeah.
And Cougs turned the ball over on an inbounds pass with 1.5 to go on their side of the floor, and it just was and then Arizona scored 2 points at the...
Hung with them and just kind of made a couple of errors down the stretch.
Yeah, they needed that one.
Yeah.
That was a big one because it was at home.
Delaney's fun to watch. Man, is she good. And, remember that Delaney announced that she was coming to BYU on her big decision night right here on our show, which was really fun. And so we have a good relationship with Delaney. I've had a chance to talk to her a couple of times. If you go watch a women's game or you watch them on television, you're going to notice Delaney Gibb. She's the best player on the floor. She's just a freshman like Egor Demin is on the men's side. But immediately your eye will be drawn to her and how smooth and athletic and how advanced her game is out there. She's going to be something special at BYU.
Amber Whiting's going to join us in 2 weeks here on the Wise Guys. We'll talk about Gibbs' development and the rest of this team that she's put together. A lot of shooters.
That's right.
They were ice cold in the early going against Arizona, and then they bounced back and looked like they were going to take it. It looked like they had it under control, and a couple of mistakes down the stretch cost them. Cincinnati will host BYU on January 1st at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on ESPN+. So that's the next game coming for Amber Whiting and the Cougs. And we can see that our man is ready to go. Our next guest has hit three-point shots all over the world, including 262 of them at BYU. His dynamic personality can be seen all over social media, and he's a frequent basketball analyst with us on BYU TV. A pleasure to welcome back to the Wise Guys, Jonathan Tavernari, sporting the red Christmas hat on Christmas week. JT, good to see you.
Hey, D-Mac, I was told that the only time that's acceptable to wear red around BYU is during Christmas time if it has to do with Santa. So that's what I was told when I was in school. I don't know if it was different for you guys, but that's what I was told.
I don't know, JT, because on election night, I wore a red, white, and blue tie. Right? That should be okay on the next night. And I'm like, America, people, please. And you cannot believe how many people tweeted at me. Why is Blaine wearing red?
It was Utah week.
Yeah. No, it wasn't Utah week. And they were playing Utah basketball?
No, it was football.
It was Utah week, B.
It was
Utah week. It was election night. You can't wear a red, white, and blue tie on election night.
We talked about it.
I'm never hearing that. JT, I will never. People still stop me on the street. Dude, how'd you wear that red, white, and blue tie? No, they don't even say that. They say, how do you wear that red tie during Utah week? I'm like,
I know.
America, it's red, white, and blue.
I watched you walk into the arena, and I thought, there's a guy on thin ice.
Yeah,
it was bad. With the red tie.
It was bad. So I do think you can get, since BYU doesn't play Utah in any sport this week, and it is Christmas, and you're referencing Santa, I think you're going to get away with this week. I think you're going to get away with it.
I think out of the three of us, I'm the only crazy one to talk back to people. You two are way too Christians and way too nice. And so that's the thing. I chirp back. You guys are well-mannered. So, yeah.
JT, how many continents have you hit a three-point shot on?
I guess if you call Antarctica a continent, then I haven't done that. But I have played them pretty much everywhere else. And so...
Certainly South America, North America, Europe,
Asia, Africa,
yeah.
Oceania, yeah. So
they're all 10-foot rims, but is hitting a three the same no matter where you shoot them, or is like a EuroLeague different feel from an American three?
So I will say this, right? I mean, you two have known me for a while, ever since I was even before BYU.
Right.
You guys knew me. Dave, you interviewed me. You also knew me in Vegas. I was very close with your parents
Yep.
when I was at BYU.
Yes.
And I will say this: BYU, the Marriott Center has a special place in my heart. No doubt about it. The only thing that I could possibly compare it to the Marriott Center and the feelings that I had, making it 3 there, would possibly be Brazil playing for the national team. That's one, and then the other one would probably be probably the Marriott Center. I mean, I was able to play for the national team, and I was able to have some really big games in Rio, and so I'll probably say that those are probably the most special places that I've ever made at 3. And so that obviously there were teams that were unique, and the atmosphere was intense, but that to me that means a lot. It was probably the Marriott Center, and then a couple of games that I had in Rio playing for the national team that were really special to me.
Nice.
JT, the kids that come from all over the place on this team now, you got Egor Demin from Moscow, Mihailo Boskovic from Serbia, Keba Kadis from Mali, Fusenis from Mali, Moat Mag, Australia. How challenging is it to make that transition from playing where they grew up to now playing college basketball here in the United States and at BYU?
Interesting enough, I would say that the easiest part of the whole thing is basketball. Everything else is super complicated. One of the things that I'm grateful to, probably the most, to Cav and his staff, is how much access he has given me. Not because obviously you guys know I like attention and I'm loud, but to truly be able to help Egor and to help Brody and Elijah, because coming to Provo, it's a different, right? Coming to Provo from Madrid, from Russia, it is incredibly different. From Atlanta, Georgia, right? From São Paulo, Brazil. And so basketball was always the one thing that was a constant to me, that allowed me to feel grounded, because everything else was different. The culture was different. The food was different. The habits were different. The way people talk, right? I mean, Jaguar instead of Jaguar, all of these different things. And so basketball at the end of the day was the only thing that you can relate to, that, it almost becomes your safe haven, because everything else is completely new. And it is a shell shock when you arrive in Provo.
Former BYU and international sharpshooter Jonathan Tavernari on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. The spotlight's obviously on Egor. He's been out a few games. They've held him out with a knee contusion that he suffered against Providence, although we saw him in the gym Friday.
He's fine, folks.
He's just fine. What lies ahead for him over the next few weeks when Big 12 competition shows up?
What's going to be interesting to me is to see how he is able to respond. He's already the focus of scouting reports. We all know that. Conference play is an entire different beast, because everybody knows your tendencies, but there may be some people that you played them twice. But not only that, by the time you get to the end of January, everybody's going to know what size of shoe you play with. How do you prefer? Do you prefer medium or large socks? What is your pregame rituals? Everybody's going to dissect you. And so what I'm really curious to see is, as we get towards the third, fourth, fifth week of conference play, how is he going to respond? How is he going to adjust? Right? I mean, yes, Egor has been playing at arguably the very best place outside of the NBA in the world for basketball, which is Real Madrid, right? I watched this show you guys had, I think it was last week, with Travis Hansen. Phenomenal job, by the way, guys. The way you guys do these is incredible. I wish I was there in studio with you. But Travis, I mean, I think if you haven't, for the fans watching all day, if you haven't had a chance, go and watch the Travis Hansen segment. Travis experienced that, and Egor had been playing to, aside from the 30 NBA teams, the best place in the world for basketball. But he was never the center of attention, scouting reports, media, the frenzy, the way it is happening right now. And so how is he going to respond to teams game planning to take him away completely, where he's not able to get to his pick and roll, that he's not able to do that, that passing and the handoff, and then either he's going to play the pick and roll or he's going to go in and get on the flare. How is he going to respond to that? How is Kevin Young going to adjust to be able to find him some open looks? Obviously out of all of this, Kevin is going to be the one that finds the most because he's been used to it day in and day out with superstars. But to me, that's what I'm most looking forward to with Egor.
It's interesting, Egor. He's just a kid. Yeah. Brenda and I, we try to catch up with him after every game, and my wife Brenda loves Egor. She thinks he's just the cutest kid. She wants to hug him and take care of him.
Everyone loves Egor.
She just wants to hug him and take care of him because it's like there's so much attention. She's like, he's just a kid. So she never lets us really talk basketball to him. She always just wants to come give him a hug, and he was so excited to show us his driver's license, which he finally got.
Nice.
He still had the paper copy. Brenda said, Egor, did you get it? Did you pass? And he reached into his pocket, into his hoodie pocket, and pulled it out. He had the paper copy, and he was just so excited that he got his license. So I look at this kid who's just barely 18 and just adjusting to a new place, yet you've got a steady stream of GMs and NBA personnel coming through, watching practice at every game. These teams are salivating all over this kid. He's 18, averaging 13 points a game. What is going on with all of this? Why is the NBA so excited about this kid? What makes him so special?
I think it's potential, right? In the NBA, if you have insane potential, they see it. I do feel like all of the NBA GMs and personnel, I think they get it wrong every now and then, right? They got it wrong with what was the name of the guy that came out of UNLV when Dave Rice was there? Anthony. I don't remember now.
Yeah. Dave, you and I did some of those games.
Yeah. He was a center.
Yeah.
And
yes, he was the number one pick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you look at Kwame Brown, and then you look at certain guys that that didn't pan out. Right. Unfortunately, Hoffa is in that list as well. So either you have insane potential or you can deliver right away. With Egor, the potential that he has, you cannot quantify it. That's the thing. 17, 18 years old, 6'9", still growing, long skill, got handles, silky smooth jumper, court vision, like he has highs behind his back. When you put all of these things together, and at the experience that the NBA guys have, they look at him as saying, oh my gosh, this could be a potential all-star. Someone that can come in and we can lapidate him and put it together. That was the lapidate one. B was a shout out to last year when I came, and we're talking about Florence.
That's
and
right.
And so
Beautiful.
they can lapidate him to an all-star level. And so as you do this, guys like Egor, Canon, AJ. They become a hot commodity, right? It's not like they're a dime a dozen. And someone that, as much as all of us BYU guys, we talk about it, we hype them, Canon is not talked about enough. And because I look at AJ and I look at Canon, and to me, I see a ton of similarities. I don't know about you guys. I would love to know, right? Next year, we all do things for BYU TV. You guys obviously do way more than I do. But I look at AJ and I look at Canon and I see a lot of similarities. Would love to know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, no, I love Canon to me. The only difference between him and Egor right now is Egor's experience in Spain, right, with Real Madrid. Yeah. That helped him to polish his game more, right? I think that experience that he went as a youngin, and they've been working him in the pro game really to prepare him for the pro game. So his understanding of angles and the game itself and his vision and all of that is what separates him right now. Cannon's a crazy athlete. Like, when I look at raw potential, I see every bit of what Egor has and maybe then some, because Cannon can jump out of the gym. He's got great hands. He's been, maybe because of the lack of experience, he's been rushing his shots a little bit early on, where he's just launching it quick and not taking his time. And he's tall enough and long enough and elevates enough, he doesn't have to rush to get that 3 off, right? He can set his feet and shoot it, square up.
Right.
I think we've just been kind of brushing the surface with him, and in the last game, he calmed down. He put the ball on the floor. He took it to the rack when he had chances to take it to the rack, which Kevin's been begging him to do. And I think we saw a glimpse of what Cannon can be in that last game, where he goes for 20 plus and really, really looks good. So I'm with you, JT. I love Cannon's game. And is he? Are we going to see him develop so much in the next? Is that going to be a launching point for him in your mind, where now he's a first-round draft pick next year and he goes out too? Or does this little bit of a slow start keep him here for one more year and have him come back and play with AJ? What do you think?
And I don't know Cannon enough, right? I'm not close with him like I am with some of the other guys. But then my question, I think the whole question about this, I think the question becomes, is Cannon okay? And I don't mean okay like this is a bad thing, but is he okay being a second-round draft pick, or does he come back to BYU to solidify himself as a lottery pick? How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You got to listen to Kevin Young.
Yeah,
right?
and Kevin knows it. And here's the thing about Cannon, too. He's a sweetheart of a kid, too. He's a little more shy. Comes from a great basketball family.
He's from Indiana.
His aunt is one of the greatest players in the history of the game, right?
Yeah.
So he comes from a great family who are all around him and support him extremely well. He's just a little more shy, so he doesn't. But Egor's shy, too. But Egor's been out there away from home and playing longer.
I was just about to say that there is. I love that Cannon has just that baby face, assassin face. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like just hello, how are you? And when you least expect, he dunks on you. Whereas Egor, it's almost as if he had, and I always joke around about this, especially because of our religion. I always say that I served the 4-year mission at the Marriott Center Provo mission under President Dave Rose, right? And, because I got baptized right before I came to BYU. But Egor, you talk about development, having to grow and mature, which things that happen in a mission. Egor had to do that. He left Russia when he was 14, 15.
Right.
To have to live in a different culture, different country, different language, different customs. And then now he has to doing it again. And so to him, this transition is different, which I think he talks about to the experience, to Cannon is not there yet. Maybe first time being away from home in a situation like that. I know it's very far-fetched. Can both of you just imagine if Egor and Cannon, and I know Egor, he is a bona fide lottery pick. Yeah. Definitely a top 20. We know that. Can you just imagine there is a reality where Egor comes back and next year we have Egor at the 1, Cannon at the 2, AJ at the 3?
Oh, goodness.
And can you just imagine?
Egor looked at both of us before one of the games the other night, and he said, I've never said I was a one and done.
Yeah.
That never came from me.
So here's the funny thing. I was introducing him to somebody the other night after the game, and the person said, why don't you come back and play with AJ? And he turned around and he goes, all my friends have been blowing up my phone and saying I should come back and play with AJ. And then he paused and he goes, I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah.
But it's hard. If you're like the number 3 pick, it's hard to come back, right?
It sure is.
If you're you're going to be a late first rounder, maybe you leak into the second round with NIL and all that kind of stuff, it's not as hard to imagine coming back, right? Egor right now is in everybody's top 5, and he has a chance.
Which is where I see Cannon.
Yeah,
I think the 3 of us are aligned on that. That's where I see Cannon. Is he a first rounder, a second rounder? Right. Hey, you know what? I'm going to come back. I'm going to solidify myself. And that's the hard part. You're not talking about just, he's a late first rounder. I mean, most people, 90% of the basketball world is in agreement that Egor is like a top 10 pick at worst.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that's where it's difficult for you to say, nah, I'm going to come back. Because that's one of those trains that if you miss, it may never come back again.
And he's trained his whole life to be in the NBA.
And here's the great thing that I think we don't really talk enough about. And JT, you know Egor a little bit, and I've gotten to know Cannon a little bit. Both of these kids fit in really, really well. Like, Egor's loving BYU's culture and the culture of the team and the people in the community. Cannon's a little more shy, but he's very, very comfortable. I'll tell you what, it's a testament to the families of both of these kids, the parents especially, that they've raised these young men where they can adapt. It's not like, it's obviously different for Cannon than where he grew up, right? But he's been such a part of a family, and this basketball team's got this family feel to it. The campus has a family feel to it. That I get the sense from both of them, they're very comfortable with it. And if coming back meant that they could move their way up higher in the first round for either of these guys, which I think maybe by the end of the season they're both first round draft picks anyhow. But it wouldn't be like, oh no, like back to BYU again. Like, I was just putting my time in. No, they're loving their time here right now. They're adapting unbelievably well. They're making relationships. I feel that if they both went out after this year, they will claim BYU for the rest of their lives as their place.
Oh,
and that's saying something.
I will say this. You mentioned your wife coming in and being, very, very loving, caring toward Egor. I'll try to say this without crying, but I cannot tell you, B, how many times both your mom and dad, when I would walk in the SAB, the student athlete building, and not just a, hey, JT, how are you? Like, obviously, you guys know me. I'm very touchy. I'm Brazilian. That's my culture. But the way that your mom and dad in the Wakefields, the way that they would come around the desk and they would hug me and just love me and just being there, to me, these are all things that BYU is a special place, right? And now I know that there's NIL. I know that there's life-changing money involved. But the thing to me, these are priceless things. The relationships that you have are priceless. The BYU network, the camaraderie, the family, the connections, that doesn't matter what you need, somebody will be there for you. These are special things. And to your point, B, the fact that they will carry all of this for the rest of their lives. And I guarantee it that when they become NBAers, because now all of these guys, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I guarantee you they will come back in the summertime. They will claim BYU. They'll be around the program. I don't know if they'll retire and live in Utah, right? But they will always carry that banner of I'm a BYU guy. And to me, when you look at some of the crazy numbers that you're seeing about AJ and so on, those things are almost marketing dollars that you've never had at BYU. And can you look at it as an investment? Sure, because the personal connection that you're going to get it, means so much that it's one of those things that lasts forever.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that about my folks. Mom's passed away, but she still loves you, and my dad always talks about you. And here's the thing. They love JT because he's JT, not because he can make threes from the corner. And the people around these kids, they love him because of who they are.
It helped a little bit.
No,
when
they
buried a few of those.
loved when he made. They loved him and he made threes, but they didn't love him because he made threes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, Henry Marsh on the stream said I had dinner with Cannon, and I was blown away with how kind and humble he is. I really tribute this to his upbringing. P.S. JT, I was a Brazilian missionary. That's from Henry Marsh,
yes.
One of the greatest at BYU.
Yeah, Henry Marsh, who's one of the greatest athletes in the history of the United States, one of the greatest steeplechasers of all time, and a multi-year Olympian. Coming out on there. We always love it when Henry chimes in.
A few more questions for Jonathan Tavernari here on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com before he announces his top 5 Christmas treats of all time. And I imagine there's going to be an international flavor because he's been all over the place. But a couple about AJ. He's on the team next season, projected to be the overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft. So here's the question for you. Will his biggest impact be on what he brings, or will it be felt greater by the kinds of players that he will attract to BYU for years because he came here?
So this is part of the whole thing that I listen, us as BYU fans. B, you're actually on a broadcast when I proposed to my wife. I think you remember the video.
Yes, of course.
You've seen it. Dave, you've called numerous games of mine. We love winning championships, and that's what us and fans and BYU and eternally BYU folks we do. I think this year it's more important if Egor and Canon are actually drafted than if BYU wins a championship. And this is coming from Jonathan, from JT, the basketball guy, the retired player, the former BYU player. You go around and you mess around and you get Egor in the top 10, you get Canon in the first round somehow, and then you're getting AJ, who is a lock to be a first-round pick, if not the number one pick in 2026. What do you think? What do you guys think that's going to do to the program? I mean, Kevin Young will have year in and year out a top 15 recruiting class, and that's me just being conservative on what's going to happen if you have back-to-back years of lottery picks and multiple players being drafted. And so that's what I think the impact, comes to what's happening right now with Egor and the team.
And bringing these kinds of players in. So John Rothstein just reported today that Dybantsa and the Cougars will open up next season against Villanova in T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. How big is this going to get? Like, everybody wants eyes on this team now.
Do you remember AJ going to Stephen A. and going, why can't I play Duke at BYU?
Yeah.
Why can't I play Blue Bloods program in BYU? And so my understanding is that there's a few more things coming up on the schedule, and it's going to get a whole lot of spicy, and I'm excited about that.
6'10", Xavier Staten was BYU's highest-rated signee until AJ joined the team. By the way, Xavier is the highest recruit out of Vegas since you came to town.
That's right.
So he's got big shoes to fill. Fortunately, he's pretty big.
He's a better shot blocker than JT, but he will never shoot it like JT.
I'm okay, guys. I'm okay, guys.
Right.
That's okay. I appreciate it.
So there's still a few scholarships to fill for next year. What do they need?
So I'm hoping that Brody becomes a sniper. We are certainly working on that.
Brody Kozlowski.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And we are certainly, he and I spend a lot of time together. We're certainly working on that. But I'll probably say that I think we need a Trevin Nell type of player. I think you do need a shooter. I think you do need you need a guy that's a specialist. And so to me, between Dallin and Elijah, between AJ and then let's say Cannon comes back, and then between Xavier and a couple of these other guys, and Mawat, and I think when you have all of these guys, you need a sniper, you need a shooter. To me, that's the one thing that's missing for you to say you have a complete roster.
Okay.
All right.
We'll see.
Great.
We'll see what
because
they
those
find.
guys can all put it on the floor or move the ball, and they can get where they want to in the paint and make those defenses collapse.
Right.
Now you need somebody that you can kick it out to that just knocks them down.
And I will say this: I played for way longer than I should have, mainly because of two things. Because I could read the game, and when I in catch and shoot, I got as you guys remember, I got really good at that. When you are a really, really good and efficient catch and shoot guy, that you're not a liability on defense, there is a place for you on every team, and that's the one thing I feel like it's missing right now.
There's something that it's a beauty of its own when JT was in the zone.
Yes.
And everyone knew it. Teams couldn't stop it, and it didn't matter. You were out there in Jimmer range, before Jimmer. I will say this, guys. I am the best 3-point shooter in BYU history, not named Jimmer,
who had to go supernova to be able to break my records. I'm okay with that. Like, that's fine. Like, I can totally say, hey, nobody could ever shoot like me at BYU, except for Jimmer. Like, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I can live with that.
You can do that.
Hey, how about your guy? I know you've been working a lot with Brody Kozlowski and trying to pass the knowledge and the skill on. He finally gets a few minutes out on the floor, and he knocked down a couple of shots from the outside. How happy were you to see that?
Thrilled. Brody has a heart of gold, and I can't wait for him to just get more playing time, get more attention. You guys know it. I mean, you guys were involved. You played. Sometimes you have to pay your dues, and we're all different. We have our own journey, and we have our own path to follow. And I really, really hope that Brody can continue his progress. The two guys that I'm close to the most, obviously I'm close with Egor. We text all the time, but I have a special relationship with Trevin and with Brody. I think it's because we're closer in the way that we play and how we performed. So I'm so proud of him. Right, he is not in an easy spot. You two know BYU basketball just as good, if not better than me. In any other year of BYU basketball, Brody and Elijah are the talk of the town. High 4-star guys coming to Provo. My goodness gracious, when does that happen? Right. That never happens. The only reason they are not is because Egor is here. Yeah. Again, right? It's one of those things like maybe the highest rated recruit ever tied up with AJ in terms of, what he means to come to BYU. That's Egor. And that's why Brody and Elijah are in the talk of the town. And so, at certain points, it doesn't become about physical practice and physical shooting and the art of shooting. It's more about, is this a shooting drill or a mental drill? And that's one of the things that I've been working a lot with Trevin and Brody. Hey, this is not a physical conversation. This is a mental practice. And so I'm really proud of him.
All right, here we go. 5 questions is presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies. JT's 5 favorite Christmas treats of all time.
Yeah, JT, you want to do these 1 through 5, or do you want to go 5 and save the best one for last?
I will save the best one for last.
Okay, so let's start with 5 then. Your number 5 greatest Christmas treat of all time.
I will probably say, and I'm going to need you guys' help because I don't know the names of these things, but when you get like chocolate and toffee and it's breakable and it's
it's like brittle,
like peanut. No,
yes, like brittle. Yes, yeah. With like peppermint and stuff. That's probably my number 4.
Okay, that's okay. That's 4 or is it 5?
What was 5?
Sorry, that's number 5.
Okay.
So I like that. I like that chocolate covered toffee or peppermint brittle. Yeah, any of that is good stuff. That's all good with me. Okay, so
number
that's 5. 4.
I will probably say.
What do you mean? You'll probably say? You're about to say it.
Yeah. So in Italy, you had, and it's almost like a funnel cake, but it's not really with sugar powder. It's with almost like, the little round sprinkles, and it's called strufoli, S-T-R-U, strufoli, S-T-R-U-F-F-O-L-I, strufoli.
Okay.
And it's very similar to a funnel cake, but it's a little bit crunchier. And when you put the sprinkles, it's delicious. That's my 4th one.
So Italian funnel cake is what we're talking about.
Yeah,
so we got kind of like that. We got peppermint brittle from the United States, and then we got strafoni from Italy.
Strafoli from Italy.
Okay.
And by the way, when I'm in Italy, I typically eat gelato 2 to 3 times a day. But anyhow, okay.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Number 3, it's a Brazilian. It's a Brazilian one. We call it Christmas. My God, what's the other thing? It's not pancake, but what's the other one that people love? It's
crepes.
No, it's not crepes. It's the bigger
toast.
One. It's French toast.
Oh, French toast.
French toast. So it's a Brazilian version of French toast. It's called Christmas French toast. In Portuguese, you say rabanada de Natal, which is Christmas French toast. And what you do, you have the bread. You don't put syrup on it, and you put cinnamon and sugar after you fry it, and then you put peppermint on top. And it is really, really
Sounds
good.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So far, nothing is good for you that he's talked about, but it's all great.
The Christmas trees.
So we've gone to the United States with the peppermint toffee kind of thing. We got
Yes.
Strafoli from Italy. Now we got a Brazilian Christmas French toast. I can't wait for 2-in-1. Number 2.
Yeah. Well, so number 2, I'm gonna go traditional American. I'm a big fan of gingerbread cookies.
Oh,
That's old school.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
old school. Gingerbread cookies.
Gingerbread cookies, very light on the sugar, very light on the topping, the filling, the cream cheese, whatever that white thing, green thing, just very light on that. Just a plain old gingerbread cookie. To me, it is delicious.
Yeah, you
So
can't not eat just one.
Yeah, and you're not talking about like plain old gingerbread, like a gingerbread man. You're talking about where like it has the whipped cream in the middle of 2 ginger. Yeah, I'm with you on
Yes.
that one. I'm with you on
Yes.
that one. Okay,
Yeah,
and
I'm
number
hungry.
1, the
Number one
best Christmas treat for
number
Jonathan Tavernari.
1. It's an Italian item that we always eat it in Brazil, and then when I lived in Italy, just became part of our almost daily thing. But in America, we would call it a fruit cake, but it's not a fruit. It's a bigger. It's called panettone. So if you guys look it up, it's called pane, P-A-N-E, tone, T-O-N-E, panettone.
Panettone.
And it is a bigger fruit cake, but the fruit are not as big as a regular fruit cake in America. They are very small ones like raisins and such. And what my family we like to do, we buy it and we slice it probably in about 8s or 12s.
Yeah.
And we get Nutella and we put Nutella on top.
Okay.
And put it on the oven for 3 minutes. You just turn on the broil. Here's the quick recipes. Cooking with JT. You slice it. You turn on the broil before you slice it, and then you slice it and you put Nutella on top, and then you put it on the oven for 3 minutes. All right, really easy to remember. JT for three minutes.
3
that
minutes.
panettone, and you let it cook, and you take it out. And when you bite it, if you really close your eyes, you can hear the wind from the Amalfi Coast whispering to you, "Que bello."
That's
Put
a
that
lot.
buono.
That's a lot.
Really good.
From the Amalfi Coast.
That's
I'm
a
loving
lot.
it.
You've heard. That's like putting a seashell up to your ear and here in the ocean.
Well,
you
here's
bite that
what's
stuff.
going to happen to you. You're going to spread the Nutella on it, and then you're just going to broil it for 3 minutes. It's going to soak into it.
Yeah, that's
That's
That's right. And it doesn't burn. It warms up the bread. The Nutella melts a little bit, and I promise you, the little itty bitty fruits, it doesn't feel like a fruit cake. It's amazing. It's my favorite treat. At first, you could only, for whatever reason, you could only find it at Ross, but now Harmon's carries it. Other grocery store carries it.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. The next time I'm in Provo to do a game, I'm going to bring you guys one, and I'm also going to bring you guys some Nutella for both of you. So
That's the
I got
best
it.
thing
Mark
I've
it
heard
out.
tonight.
So what I love is that JT's always our international guy. He's a jet setter, international guy, and he comes in with 2 Italian, 2 United States, and 1 Brazilian treat for Christmas.
That's Italian that he was eating in Brazil.
He ate it in Brazil, but he also but it'll bring back memories of the Amalfi Coast as soon as you eat it. That is something.
That's quite a billing. That's fantastic.
Well, I gotta match up to you guys' level somehow.
That was good. You
I
did.
gotta do what I gotta do.
We love it.
Give our best to Kiri and the boys. It's crunch time for the boys to keep off the naughty list. They doing okay?
They're doing great. We're getting preparations ready. I think you guys, both of you saw on social media, you reacted to it. My mom is retiring from coaching.
Yeah.
And, now that I'm American citizen, they can get a green card. They can spend more time here with us in Utah. So we're getting the house ready, and the boys are behaving great. And they're excited for vovó and vovó. That's grandma and grandpa in Portuguese.
Yes.
To come in with us.
That's awesome.
Awesome stuff.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Way
We'll
to go,
see you.
JT.
See you
Thanks
soon
so
on
much. Love
BYU
you,
You
brother.
guys.
We'll see you on the air.
Appreciate you. Love you guys, and we'll be in touch. Merry
Great
Christmas.
stuff. All right, thank you. JT for 3. He's a great. I'll tell you what. He brings some pizzazz to our pregame shows.
We love it.
And great to have on the Wise Guys. And he's in with those guys. He's in with Egor. He's working out with those guys. He knows what he's talking about.
One of the best shooters of all time at BYU. We know that. And not afraid to shoot it from any distance. So.
And he had a long list of treats.
Yep. No. And he's like. JT's part of the fabric of BYU. When he and I talk, and you've known him forever. You knew him since he was in high school, and I've known him since he came here. And my folks took great care of him when they were hosting at the student athlete building, taking care of those kids. But he's part of the fabric of BYU. He's what's good about BYU. JT comes here, and he just becomes part of it forever. And that's our hope for Egor and Canon and all these guys, and even AJ when he comes, that he becomes part of it forever.
A lot of Christmas dessert suggestions.
Yes, I'm coming up
in the spirit of JT.
Michael Zimmerman had gingerbread cookies the other day. So.
Yeah, I saw a lemon
flan
meringue
from Cuba, says Sylvia.
Yeah,
I don't know if I love flan.
I don't even know what flan
lemon
is.
Meringue pie, though, I could eat that all day long.
Really?
Thank you for that. I'm like, oh yeah.
Not me.
But I can't do banana cream, guys, because I'm allergic to bananas.
Yeah, stay away from
Who's
those.
allergic to bananas?
You are.
I have some issues. I'm colorblind and I'm allergic to bananas. What's wrong with me?
You know what? We're gonna straighten you out in the new year.
Eventually.
We're gonna get some gurus in here to help us. What a show tonight! Let's roll out with a couple of things. Gymnastics. The preseason All Big 12 team was announced. Brynlee Anderson from the beam, Anna Bramlett Wild from the bars, and Sophia Dudley from the floor. 3 Cougars representing on the preseason All Big 12 squad.
And how about men's volleyball? Season opener January 3rd through the 4th. They're at Ohio State, so they open on the road at Ohio State. Good program. Home openers January 10th against St. Thomas Aquinas, and then next week we'll have Sean Olmstead on the show.
And I'll tell you what, he brings a cool vibe.
Yeah, I love when Sean comes on the show.
It's going to be awesome.
He still has some Southern California chill vibe to him, which I love about Sean.
And volleyball and beach, and that's just synonymous.
Yep.
Cougars in the NFL, we're going to see some on Christmas. On Wednesday, the Chiefs with Kingsley Suamataia and, of course, head coach Andy Reid at the Steelers.
The Ravens with Kyle Van Noy. Career high 10.5 sacks.
Shout out to Van Noy. That's awesome.
Kyle just keeps getting better. And Kyle, when it's not in season, is always coming on the show with us and does a phenomenal job with that as well.
And he's heading to the Pro Bowl. It's not official yet, but I think that's where he's going.
You got to go.
So they're playing the Texans. It's a Christmas doubleheader, and it's on like what is it on? It's on like Netflix.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little different.
Knows?
But those are very big games with playoff implications.
For sure.
Thursday, the Seahawks, Jaron Hall's been activated.
Yeah.
So he's just one decision away from being on the field. The Seahawks are at the Bears on Thursday.
BYU's last 2 quarterbacks are both active quarterbacks on NFL rosters.
That's great.
So Sunday, the Cardinals with Kairos Tonga at the Rams and Puka Nacua. We talked about him today on the show.
Rams are still in the playoff mix. Zach Wilson and the Broncos are at the Bengals. He'll reunite with Ryan Rico.
That's right. And how about the Raiders at the Saints? Jamal Williams. We normally would say Taysom, but he's not healthy.
At least
right
Jamal's back.
Yep.
So we got that going. Blake Freeland and the Colts, they had a big win the other day. They're at the Giants.
And the Panthers with Brady Christensen play at the Bucks. I don't know how they lost that game last night.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have
that
lost.
was a big loss. Zane Anderson and Chris Brooks and the Packers are at the Vikings. That's a huge game.
Yeah, big game with implications. The Falcons and Tyler Algier at the Commanders and Michael Davis on NBC.
How about some prime time for those guys?
That's right.
And then Monday, the Lions are at the 49ers with Fred Warner. That's a NFC Championship rematch, isn't it?
How about the fact
though.
that Fred Warner has had 9 straight seasons of 100-plus tackles?
He's fantastic.
Unbelievable.
No playoffs for the 49ers this year.
Yeah.
They got issues. On this day, December 23rd, we roll out the show, which has been an awesome show tonight.
Yep.
We hope you're enjoying the podcast. 1788 on this day.
Yeah, Maryland votes to cede 10 square miles to form the District of Columbia.
That happened today.
Yep.
On this day in 1951, the Rams beat the Bears 24-17 in the first NFL title game televised coast to coast.
There you go. In 1958, Jim Lovell and William Anders become the first to orbit the moon aboard Apollo 8.
Do you think for a second while they're up there orbiting the moon, they looked down at the Earth and they thought, hey, how are we going to get back down there?
I think they had it figured out, but maybe they wondered, is this really going to work?
I would wonder.
We did this, And we have all these calculations.
It worked
Is
in the
this really
lab.
going to work?
I don't know.
I would have been nervous.
On this day in 1972, the Immaculate Reception. The Steelers beat the Raiders 13-7 on a last-second touchdown pass that bounced off someone's foot or hands up into the air, and Franco Harris caught it
right on his shoe
ran
tops
for a touchdown.
Yep, unbelievable.
The Immaculate Reception.
1997, Chicago Bulls coach Phil Jackson becomes the fastest to reach 500 wins. He did it in 682 games.
And that same year, the U.S. Agriculture Department put out this report. They estimated that it cost $149,820 to raise a child to 18. Today's estimate by the same group is $237,482.
Man, that's expensive.
Those kids are expensive.
They're expensive. Now that we put it up
Why
in
do we have
dollars.
so many of them?
That's wild. So let's do birthdays. Both relatives of mine on a birthdays today. So
It's a doubleheader.
Yeah. So in 1805, Joseph Smith, the prophet of the restoration of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and first president of the modern-day church, was born on this day.
When you think of the wise guys, you think of BYU and members of the church all over the world, all of us impacted by today on Joseph Smith's birthday.
Right. And then Joseph's great, so 4 greats.
It's a lot of greats.
Nephew, and my son, Kellen Fowler, was born on this day in 1983.
Happy birthday, Kellen.
And Kellen's birthday was a pretty crazy event because we were not due. And so the team physician said that Brenda could come on the trip to the Missouri Holiday Bowl. The flight caused her to go into labor, and we had Kellen on the road at this part of the Holiday Bowl. It was the Holiday Bowl baby when we were playing Missouri in 1983. After the game, I picked him up at the hospital. I was there. He was born early in the morning. Went back, had team pregame meal, went to the game, borrowed Mark Bellini's car, went out and got Kellen and Brenda at the airport, drove out to North Island Naval Air Station, right to the bottom of the stairs. They let us pull right up and took Brenda and Kellen onto the plane. And the first person that helped us get situated was Jeffrey Holland,
President
who said,
Holland.
the president of the university, "Here, let me hold little Jeffrey." We said, "Well, his name's Kellen," and he held Kellen while Brenda got situated, and then Lavelle Edwards said, "Here, let me hold him. Let me hold little Lavelle." And Brenda's like, "No, it's not Lavelle either. It's Kellen." So the very first 2 people to hold Kellen on the 23rd of December today were Jeffrey Holland, followed by Lavelle Edwards. Then they handed him back to Brenda, and we flew home.
And they were happy
on his birthday.
They were happy because Steve Young cut a flea flicker for a
Yes,
touchdown.
he did. And he stood that
beat
through a
Missouri.
quarterback throwback, and we beat Missouri.
What a
We
night.
finished number 7 in the country that year and launched us into 84, where we won every game.
That's right.
And won a national championship. So quite an eventful 83. But Brenda comes through the Smith line, and her great-great-great-grandfather is Hiram Smith.
Gotcha.
So Joseph Smith is Kellen's 4 great uncle.
Well, happy birthday to both.
Yep, born on his uncle's birthday.
Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is from President Russell M. Nelson, the current president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who said, it's a Christmas message here,
"No gifts will mean as much as acts of pure love you offer to the lonely, the worn down, and the weary. These are gifts that remind us and them of the true reason for the season. The gift of God's Son, Jesus Christ, who was born to cast out all fear and bring everlasting light and joy to all who follow him."
That's President Russell M. Nelson here on 2 days before Christmas.
Perfect message during this Christmas week. So
Thanks to Jeff Hansen and Jonathan Tavernari, geniuses,
Yeah.
both of them, and they really enhanced our show.
when they come on the show, it's hard to keep up with them. They
So
are
good.
amazing.
And we
So,
appreciate them, especially this close to Christmas.
Yes.
Carving us out a couple of hours.
and Dirk Palmer says, "I think he means peppermint bark."
Could be.
Jonathan, that I think is what
Yeah,
he means.
I think you're right.
Thanks for that, that contribution, Dirk. I think you're right. That's what Jonathan was talking about, peppermint bark.
Hey, next week is our last show of 2024. We'll break down the bowl game. We'll reveal the Wise Guys' top 10 BYU sports stories of the year. See if you agree.
Well, we already have them, but something could eclipse it in the game this week. We might have
and
to.
we'll reveal the order of them.
Yeah, we might have to. Something in the game could happen, and we have to slide it in there.
So that's going to be a must-see. And Sean Olmstead, head volleyball coach for BYU, is going to be in studio with us.
Yeah, where can you find us this week? Saturday, 3:30. You and I will be doing the game day on BYU TV, ESPN Plus, and the post-game show. And then Dave's on Deseret News all week.
Few stories all week.
Yep,
That'll
got
be
stuff coming.
a lot of fun. Thanks to Parker, who is helping us pull off the
Parker
show tonight.
He's in tonight helping us out on a vacation week.
And Jack's one of us, and DJ, who's usually with us year round, and Miranda, who also stops in to help us. We thank them profusely for the wise guys. Also, a shout out to Brady Plus and the Deseret News. We're presented by Brady Plus. We're distributed by the Deseret News. We appreciate them.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to everybody. Have a great Christmas.
And I'm excited for the bowl game.
Yep. We'll see you on Saturday.
See you Saturday.